sometimes it's easier to talk to people online or through text than it can be to talk to them in person. So can I still have the same type of conversation in person that I can have via text or, direct message or whatever?
Hey everyone, I'm Alex, and I help shy, introverted nerds get over their fears and anxieties to find their player too. Today I bring you Luna, aka GamerMomLuna, and Jason, two nerds who found each other, and we're going to talk about how they ended up together. The idea is to address some of your questions, dispel some myths, and hear about the many different ways that nerds can find real relationships. Luna and Jason, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So, why do you guys consider yourselves nerds?
I would say I'm a nerd. I've been playing TTRPGs for about 17 years now. And so there's that. I'm also a video gamer. And I've been playing video games pretty regularly since about 2011. But I think my first system was a Super Nintendo. So, so I've had them for a while.
Fair enough. So old school gamer. Yeah.
Yeah, I did buy an Atari at a yard sale once, but I actually had the Super Nintendo first. So,
cool. Jason?
Let's see. I started playing TTRPGs with D&D in 1981, although there's a few decades where I took a break. And then I guess I also read and have a small collection of comic books. On the other side of nerddom, I play harmonica, so that's a whole different kind of nerdity.
It's a well-rounded nerd, I would say.
I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. So, where does your story start? How did you guys meet?
I have been a TTRPG streamer since late 2018. And in probably late 2019, I started a TTRPG talk show stream and ran that right up until the end of 2024. And so we actually met through my Discord server because of that show, because Jason used to watch it before we met. He was already watching it.
So Jason, you got to live the dream of dating and then marrying the streamer.
Yeah, I started getting back into D&D around 2018. So I would and I got pretty deep into it. I mean, now I write supplements, adventures. I write a weekly blog about it. I write for some other companies. But at the time, I was just kind of diving into it and finding all these YouTube and Twitch streams. So I think I was watching Luna's show for like a year and just kind of throwing things into chat before we actually started sort of chatting on or Discord or any social media.
Yeah.
What made you join her Discord?
I can't remember the inciting incident, but her Discord is kind of different than almost the rest of the social media world in that it's very open and friendly, and people are honest and welcoming. So there's not a lot of the, I don't know, Reddit kind of attitude that you end up seeing. So yeah, it was just conversation, and not all about, TTRPGs or video games, just whatever comes up, cooking and watching movies together. So I think that's how I started. And I probably overwhelmed the conversations about D&D and role-playing games and stuff, but it wasn't, It was a natural kind of thing, like me just joining the conversation. So it took a while before it wasn't I mean, as attractive as she is, I didn't go in there trying to get a date. Well, at the time, I didn't know we were both in the same area. That was kind of accidental that, oh, wait, we live an hour away from each other.
Yeah, we had no idea. It was one of those, like Jason said, it's not uncommon to have conversations about all kinds of stuff in the server. So, cooking or movies or books or whatever. And it just so happened, it was probably one of those conversations that was like, I'm in this state and the weather is this today. Oh man, it's really cold there. The weather is this here today. And it was probably something along those lines that both of us went, oh, you're in New Hampshire. I'm also in New Hampshire. Like, oh, it'd be fun to get together and talk about TTRPG sometime in person. And then, because it was like in this kind of open forum, it was like just kind of left it at that. It wasn't, we didn't go ahead and plan anything. And we had the added bonus of it being just after like all of the COVID lockdowns had ended and the world was like remembering how to interact in person again, because this was like the early 2022 that we made the realization that we were both in the same state. And so we ended up like chatting via Twitter direct message for a while and then moving on to text messaging before we even got together in person. And we did that for a while. So
do you remember how you transitioned from Discord chat publicly and then to one-on-one to DMs?
I remember when we did it, but I don't remember what we were talking about. I don't think it wasn't a personal romantic conversation. I think it was just a text heavy thing. Like she and I are talking about one thing, paragraphs at a time, and the rest of the Discord doesn't care about that. So we take it aside, because I feel like afterwards we chatted one-on-one for a long time about just, music and TV and stuff like that. Before we even started talking about meeting up. Like
he would make he would reference a line in a song and he'd be like, oh, that's from such and such a song. And I'd be like, oh yeah, I know that song. And, it would kind of launch off that way.
that actually brings two interesting points that I want to highlight. So one is many people, they just go straight for the DMs. Whereas in your case, it was like you had a relationship that was like on the public Discord, and it was natural to move into the DMs, right? Like it was too much for like just you were bothering everybody else. It was like okay, let's just move to the DMs, and that's the first thing. And then the second one is you mentioned that you started talking about other topics, not just TTRPGs, and I always highlight that. If you want to build relationships, whether it is friendships like platonic or romantic, you should get out of the sort of the container or the starting point that brought you together, right? Because that's sort of the starting point or the first topic that you can have in common with a person that you know that you have, right? It's a great, easy way to start a conversation. Right. But if you always get stuck with the topic, TTRPGs, video games, whatever it is, then you don't really get to know the person.
Yeah, we eventually ventured off into music and movies and books and food and the fact that we both had teenagers and, were previously married. And lots of that outside conversation to get to know each other more. I mean, obviously it wasn't like, today we're going to talk about books, it was a very natural progression of the conversation, but it would be like I mentioned, he would reference a song and I'd be like, oh, I know that song. And, it would kind of get us down the music track. And then, something else would come up and one of us would say like, oh yeah, one of my kids, blah, 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 and it would move us down that track. So yeah, it was good. It was a lot of really good, very natural flowing topics and conversations.
Yeah, it's sort of like an exploration, right? Like seeing like what do we have in common, what do we have different, and just going deeper. That's just something I want you to highlight, because usually what I've seen often is someone goes to an event and they only talk about whatever the topic is at the event. and then
Yeah.
you don't really make actual connections of any type.
Right.
So, okay, so you guys were talking for quite a while. Do you remember how long you were chatting one-on-one?
Couple of months, I
Couple
think.
months. Right.
Yeah, it was definitely a few months.
Did either of you at that point think that there could be something romantic between you?
I was interested once I knew that this was somebody that I could have conversation with.
Yeah.
Like, I was kind of like, oh, okay, this could lead to something, but it was like let's have dinner and see what happens. And, we went out a few times, I think, before I was really like, yeah, okay, I'm in,
Yeah. And I don't know, there's a difference between being attracted to somebody and knowing and feeling like you could have a relationship.
Yeah.
Right. So, because you could be attracted to just some person you see in a poster on the wall. That doesn't mean anything. Right. But it was, so as far as when I thought we should go out we should have a date, right? It was after we had moved things to a one-on-one. And certainly well after we transitioned from Dungeons and Dragons, right? It was music and movie and also like not just pop culture, right?
Yeah.
The kids and, our parents and that kind of thing.
Actual life.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. What do you do for work and how long have you been there? And that sort of stuff.
I think we probably, we kept things at a distance for a while, right? Like we can talk about these in the abstract without actually saying, by the way, here's my phone number and the street I live on.
Yeah.
But you get the feeling that there's some, I don't know, that there's a chance, right? Yeah. That there could be.
Well, and I think too, especially me being a woman and a single parent at the time, I think for me, there's always that layer of like added, I don't want to say secrecy because that's not really the right word, but caution. Yeah. Because like so Luna is not my real name. Jason didn't know that at first.
I didn't. We had already set up our first date before I knew what her real name was.
Yeah.
I had to ask her.
He was like, oh yeah, by the way, is Luna your real name? And I was like, actually, no, it's not.
After a few months.
And like, people would know, like I was very open about the fact that I was divorced. I was very open about the fact that I had a kid when I would be on stream, but I would never drop her name. I would never, I would never talk about the city that I lived in. People knew I was in New Hampshire, which is a fairly small state, but it's still big enough to be like, I could be anywhere in the state, and part of that was out of an abundance of caution just from being a streamer. And part of that was out of caution of being a single parent with a 10-year-old daughter at the time, or 11 by the time we met. So, there was a lot of that. And those are all precautions that I would have taken had we met on a standard dating app too. So I think in that regard, it wasn't totally different than if we had met like through any of the, whatever's out there these days. I don't even know.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. So what was the first time you met? Was it a date or was it just let's meet in person?
It was a date. It was out for dinner, in part because I'm like old, at least in spirit, if not actual. So I don't know how to hang out. I'm used to, opening doors and asking people out to dinner and having a date. Which is probably not a recommendation.
It's probably fair to mention that there's a 14-year age difference between us.
Okay.
So the year he started playing D&D was the year I was born.
Well, he started playing D&D before I was born, so I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I even skew older than I actually am. Right? So I mean, as far as like, what would I recommend to other people? Maybe don't. You don't have to get your nerve up and ask, right?
Yeah.
It probably makes more sense to hang out in a group and see if you, but we, well, for one thing, I mean, we met through like our connection with D&D, and probably would have been made more sense for me to invite her to my game. But because it was just coming out of COVID, all my games were online.
Yeah, and all my games were streamed. Right. So
so we couldn't just like, let's go over my friend Joe's house and play D&D for a night.
Right.
Because that would have been a lot more low key, and probably would have.
And probably more low stakes too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But so we met over dinner, and it was, it was great. We picked a city that there's stuff to do there. So if we like went to dinner and then we were like, oh, like we should go out for drinks after or whatever, go get ice cream, whatever it might be. It was March, so it wasn't super warm, but, we deliberately picked a city that had a bunch of different things to do in case we needed additional things to do. And then of course I'm always a fan of playing the I have a kid at home, I need to leave card if I have to. So we met for dinner, which was great because we were there for, I don't know, probably like 2 hours or something. Just having dinner and talking and yeah. And the only reason we didn't end up staying out longer was because it was snowing that night. And so it was just a matter of like, we should probably get home before the roads get bad. Yeah. But otherwise, we left, and we're pretty much at that point, we were like, yeah, we should do this again next weekend. So, I think we pretty much went like 3 weekends in a row. We were like, yeah, we should do this again. Yeah, we should do this again. And then we were kind of more official after that.
Right. Luna, did you also understand that it was a date?
I think I felt that it was date-ish. It was, I mean, I knew it, like, it was the two of us, and like that I was interested, and I was kind of like, yeah, let's get together and, see what he's like in person. And, can I have the same type of conversation? Sometimes it's easier to talk to people online or through text than it can be to talk to them in person. So can I still have the same type of conversation in person that I can have via text or, direct message or whatever? So I think this also goes back to me again, like, the single mom thing, having had been on some pretty bad dates over the previous years. Like, so I was kind of at the point where I was like, I'm not going into anything thinking it's a date. But that was my own, like, that had nothing to do with him. Yeah. And that was purely me being like, I'm just going to be really like cautious and careful. That was totally a me thing.
Yeah. So you guys didn't do any like audio video calls before you met in person?
I don't think so.
Luna, had you seen him before you met him in person? Because he'd seen you a lot.
I knew what you looked like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had seen her for a year or more.
Yeah.
But I don't think, had I been on your show?
I think you'd been on my stream at least once by then.
So I think you knew what I looked like.
Okay.
So we'd interacted like in a group of when I did my talk show stream, it wasn't like a one-on-one or one-on-two interview. It was me and 5 other people discussing TTRPG. So it wasn't like it was just him and I talking. Right. It was me, him, and 4 other people just having a 2-hour discussion about TTRPGs and stuff. So we had talked, but not just the 2 of us.
Right.
But I at least could I was able to pick him out at the bar. So that was good.
Yeah. So like, at least you had seen him on video. So you were like, okay, you had an idea of what he looked like.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So you go on that first dinner date, ish, at least for you. So for like 2 hours, and you said you met like over like 3 weekends in a row.
Yeah.
Is that 3 weekends until you were like, okay, we're like dating and something, and like you had already like kissed or something? Or was it like, okay, on the third one, you're like, okay, I actually do like him, and then something did happen? Like, was it like just 3 dinners where nothing happened? That's basically the question.
Well, the first date, you kissed me on the cheek.
Yeah.
When you walked me to my car.
Yeah, that was pretty much it until I think the end of the third time we saw each other.
Yeah.
I think we met for breakfast once.
Yeah.
Like a brunch.
Yeah.
And then she had a game night at our house.
Yeah.
So that's, I think now I'm speaking for you, but that gives her a chance for her friends to meet me and, later on catch up. And
that honestly was not what
at
that
the time
wasn't the
you
thought
get the
process.
vibe, do they hate this guy? But you could always ask them, what do you think?
Yeah.
But by then it's by the end of that date, I think it was romantic.
Yeah.
But it wasn't to the stage where, I don't know, we have a relationship.
Yeah, we hadn't had the exclusivity talk or anything like that. I mean, it wasn't much longer after that, but
yeah, it took a while after that. But like say 2 or 3 weeks after that, then we started seeing each other probably multiple times a week, and it was like, oh, okay,
yeah,
this is a thing. But it took a while.
But when you said that she introduced you to her friends, that was not within those 3 first dates. That was like afterwards.
It was the third date, I think.
It was the
I don't have all of this written down.
No, I know.
Except the first date.
So
I think
we had our first date, we went out to dinner. Our second date, we went out to brunch. Then I think it was after we met up for lunch when you were looking at that condo.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So we went out to dinner and then brunch and then lunch.
Yeah.
And then she introduced me. Then we had a game night.
Then we had a game night. Yeah.
So yeah, it was good. So it was a good 4 dates before we were really romantic.
But by 3 dates, obviously, I was comfortable enough to bring him into my house. So
right.
Like, here's my address. Yeah. At that point, he had my address. So,
but nothing had happened. I mean, like just like a kiss on the cheek and that's it.
No.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right. So then my question would be like, how? Because many people's fear is the friend zone, right? It's like, I have to have something happen fast and quick because otherwise I'm going to get friend zoned. That's sort of like the discourse that's out there, which I don't agree with. And I really like showing that that's not the case. So what was it about those dates that you still considered it dates, even though nothing happened? There wasn't any point where you guys were like, well, I guess they don't like me. I guess we're just friends. That didn't cross your mind.
Oh, I think I probably gave that vibe off to him.
I got that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was ready for it to be romantic before she was.
Yeah.
Okay.
We even had that conversation once.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember how it came out, but once we literally had the conversation, I like you more than you like me, which sounds a little bit
but
middle school, but it was because that's where we were at that point. But I think there was enough there that we both kind of weren't ready to just say, oh yeah, okay, forget it then.
Yeah.
So eventually it worked itself out. Eventually we got to the same place.
Yeah. It leveled out.
But I think that's good because like often like you don't say those things, right? And then the other person assumes, right? One person assumes that they're friend zoned, the other person assumes that you're still getting to know each other. Versus saying like, hey, I like you. Where are you at? And I'm guessing, Luna, from your side would have been like, I'm not sure yet, but I'm exploring it. So it's not like, I just want to be friends, but it's like.
Yeah, I think you're right on with that. It was very much like, I'm not ready to say anything definitive, but I'm definitely interested, It was just a lot slower for me. And there's a lot of reasons why, like it had, and again, I think all of those reasons had nothing to do with him. It was all like me and like things that I was dealing with. I don't think.
Yeah. And some of the ways that our early relationship went has as much to do with, we had both already been through, a pretty lengthy marriages and the divorce and breakup and kids. it probably would have been completely different if we met when we were, I don't know, 2 years out of college or something like that. So, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'd done a lot of work on that end, but I was still sorting through some of that baggage, and after I'd gotten out of my divorce and gotten back into the dating field, this was several years before meeting Jason, dated somebody for a while. And then again, that ended very badly. And so I was still kind of wading through some of that stuff and I was in a place where I didn't want to just throw myself into a relationship again because I wanted to protect myself. And I didn't want to put my daughter through seeing me go through that again. Yeah. And so there was a lot more of that sort of self-preservation than there was, that's why I keep saying it had nothing to do with Jason, and it was everything with me trying to protect myself because I just didn't want to get hurt again.
I really like that you're highlighting that because in your case, it was you have a daughter, you're past a divorce, past a bad relationship. Everyone has something, right? Yeah. And regardless of age, regardless of what experiences you've had in life, everyone has something that they may want to take it slower. They may not want to be with someone now because of their own reasons. And we often take it very personal. Right. So I really like that you guys had that conversation and were like, well, this is where I'm at, maybe for these reasons or not, clarified. And most often that doesn't happen. It's the discourse usually is you cannot talk about it because it loses the magic or some bullshit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you end up assuming things and you're like, oh, I got rejected or I got friend zoned because of me, because of how I am, because of something that I didn't say or that I did say. Right. Versus the other person might be going through something or they went through something and now they don't want to repeat it. Right. Yeah. I would like to touch on the Discord and sort of like the dynamics that happen within the Discord. And if someone goes to a server and they would like to get to know someone better, right? How do you think they should approach it? And what do you think they should not do?
I think my first thing would be, is it okay for me to DM you? Ask permission for the person before you just assume it's okay to DM them. I would pretty much always just advocate for, hey, if I wanted to get more information about whatever we're talking about, is it okay for me to DM you? Because some people are just not, they don't want to be DM'd at all, ever. So, I think that would be my biggest thing to suggest to people.
Yeah, and some servers even have that as a rule. Yeah. That you can't DM somebody unless you ask them in the server first.
And I would add, even if you were allowed to DM at one point, that doesn't mean that you're allowed to DM someone forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, we can chat for a bit, depending on whether they ask questions back or how the conversation go. If you're only getting one word answers, right, and yes and no answers, most likely,
right,
that's your call to just stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, do you want to, I know, Luna, you had something that you wanted to share?
Sure. Yeah. So I am starting my 5th year of fundraising for Extra Life this year. For anyone who's not familiar with Extra Life, they work with US-based Children's Miracle Network hospitals to provide treatment, research, care for kids who are undergoing usually some pretty serious medical issues. A lot of times you might hear about kids with cancer or who need, life-saving surgery and that kind of thing. Children's Miracle Network hospitals can help. They raise funds either to help with research around these things or to just help provide payment for the cost of the care, so that the families can stay nearby at a hotel, things like that. So it's a really amazing program. And Extra Life fundraises for the Children's Miracle Network hospitals through basically gamer-related events, whether that's, a single weekend or all year. The fundraising, I just started again in January, and it'll go all the way through the end of December. This is my 5th year, and in 4 years, I've raised a little over $6,000 for them. And so hoping to add another 1,000 to that total this year. So, it's if people can donate, that's great. If not, sharing the word is also amazing. It's a really, really awesome charity, and who doesn't want to help take care of kids? The work that they do is just really, really awesome stuff. I'm also a little biased because I do work in a hospital myself, but I didn't when I first started fundraising for them. So, so I just wanted to share that I'm, starting that again, and that'll go all the way through the end of December, 2025. So, and then we'll probably pick it up again in 2026.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm going to add the link in the description and the show notes. So people should go there and just help. Guys, thank you so much for joining. This has been amazing. And I'm sure that people will find it quite useful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.